The NFL Draft. It's the accumulation of years of hard work and determination for players who have spent their lives preparing for this pivotal moment. For suffering franchises, it's a chance to turn the tides. But what if I told you it was a $750 million problem for the NFL? $750 million is the expected total value of all the first-round draft contracts in 2024. All that for the possibility of them being a bust.
Dreams coming true.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Money being made.
A lot of lives changed.
Franchises potentially changing.
Yep.
But what is most likely is that person's going to suck.
Draft bust. The words that no NFL fan wants to hear when it comes to their draft pick, especially when applied to someone drafted in the first round.
Is it fair? I'm not calling him a bust, but Bryce has.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
He's not an overcomer.
I wouldn't even bring that word bust up at all.
Because he was great that 1 year, you say, well, how could he be a bust? Well,
Of the roughly 250 players drafted every year, about 70% of them will have limited, if any, playing time for the team that drafted them. While this number might not seem shocking considering there are 7 rounds in the NFL draft, the success rate of the first round is only 50%. What causes these issues with the NFL draft, and is it possible to fix them? There are 4 main elements in why so many draft picks turn out to be bust, and we will cover them in this video. But first we need to discuss how we categorize a draft bust. If you're enjoying the video and want to ensure my channel isn't a bust, please consider subscribing. Draft bust can come with different meanings. For many players, this would involve not making the team, never playing for the team, or having very limited playing time with the team that drafted them. While this encompasses a lot of late round draft picks, we're going to mainly focus on the second category of draft bust. Players who never lived up to their anticipated value, especially considering the contracts they had received when drafted. While this can be vague and it's hard to judge most draft picks until years after they were selected, we can use the 49ers and Trey Lance for an example. While the future of his career is not set in stone, it's safe to say he was a draft bust for the 49ers. Lance was the 3rd overall pick back in 2021 and received a fully guaranteed 4-year, $34.1 million contract with the 49ers. He was expected to be the future of the franchise, but would play in only 8 games over 2 years before being traded to the Dallas Cowboys.
And a 4th round pick, to what Kyle Shanahan said, is I think better than what I expected, considering they had already buried him 3rd on the depth chart, and you're looking at it as, all right, why would I want at that value, at that money, of the guy who isn't even worthy of your 2nd spot?
The 49ers paid him roughly $1.75 million per game he played in. To put that in perspective, in 2023, Super Bowl winning quarterback Patrick Mahomes made roughly $1.8 million per game. Paying a rookie the same amount as the top quarterback in the league is a recipe for disaster. Now that we know what a draft bust is, let's dive into what causes so many picks to not pan out. The first is the expectations for early draft picks. The top 10 draft picks are guaranteed a minimum of roughly $20 million, meaning that expectations for them to perform are at an all-time high. $20 million over 4 years might not seem like a lot of money considering the blockbuster contracts NFL stars receive, but when you consider that the average salary in the NFL is only around $2.8 million, it's nearly double the average. Quarterbacks in particular face immense expectations and pressure which not every player can handle. This pressure can come from the media, fans, and internal expectations of the team itself, and is especially apparent when a player is drafted on a subpar team. Because of the contracts, usually they're forced into a larger role right away to make up for the money that's being invested in them. Contracts aren't the only reason that these first-round draft picks, especially quarterbacks, are asked to start right away, but we'll get into that later. A great example is Zach Wilson, who was drafted 2nd overall in 2021. Expectations from Jets fans and the media were that they drafted the next Patrick Mahomes because of his ability to make every throw.
Zach Wilson is that dude, and so I start to watch some of the things, some of the off-balance throws. You see some of the arm talent while he's moving up in the pocket. He's getting outside and throwing back across his body. And now you start to see some of that Patrick Mahomes, some of that Aaron Rodgers stuff.
While expectations are not the only reason for Wilson's lack of success in the NFL, the second element might have helped him: the development of draft picks. The success of a draft pick is highly dependent on their development by the coaching staff that selects them. Most college players are not considered pro-ready as they do not possess all the skills necessary to play in the NFL at a high level. Teams don't always look at top draft picks as investments, but rather use them to fill the pieces they need right away. Scouts always identify weaknesses in each draft pick, but players are given little to no time to work these weaknesses out before being thrust into NFL games. One of the longest ongoing debates in the NFL is the benefit of sitting versus starting a rookie quarterback. Most quarterbacks taken in the first round are asked to be day one starters, and this has worked out for some players, most recently CJ Stroud. Teams are unlikely to follow the methodology that the Packers implemented when drafting Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. Both players sat for 3 years before taking over the starting role, and it seemed to work out for the Packers. I have a whole video on this topic if you want to learn more. The link will be in the description. Current superstars like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson were both developed behind veteran quarterbacks before becoming starters in the NFL, where players like Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott were instant starters and have both had successful careers. It's impossible to say which is better because we cannot reset the careers of any of these players and use the other approach to see the differences. But we can take a look back at all the starting quarterbacks that played in the Super Bowl since 2000. Of the 28 quarterbacks to start the Super Bowl, 18 of them sat for a portion of their rookie season, and of the 13 winners, 8 of them were from this group. Additionally, most college teams do not require players to utilize all the skills necessary for an NFL offense. Some players may not transition well into the NFL due to the differences in playing style or the system requirements that do not match their skill set. A running back that played in a mainly ground-focused offense may never have been asked to make blocks on play action or catch the ball out of the backfield, but these two skills are vital to performing well in the NFL. Though injuries played a part in his career, could 2010 first overall draft pick Sam Bradford been better given time to develop? Bradford signed a 6-year, $50 million rookie contract with the Rams before being asked to be the week 1 starter. Could he have been more successful if he was given the time to develop and learn from a veteran quarterback? Or did he achieve everything he was capable of? This question leads us into the next element of why so many draft picks fail. The variability in NFL draft classes. No team wants to miss out on the next Patrick Mahomes, but will there be a Patrick Mahomes in every draft class? A better question is, will there even be a long-term starter in each draft class? It's unlikely to find 3 consistently good starting quarterbacks in a single draft. Not every draft class is going to be like the 2004 NFL draft where 3 long-term starters were selected. Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Phillip Rivers were all drafted in 2004. The 2020 draft class shows promise as well. However, it's far too early in most of these players' careers to make any judgment. You're far more likely to end up with a draft class like in 2021 where most of the quarterbacks taken in the first round no longer play for the team that drafted them. The variability in the draft is not just limited to quarterbacks. Just comparing draft classes from consecutive years will tell the same story. The 2013 draft class is considered one of the worst draft classes in the last 20 years. Well, every draft class has its great players, and this one is no exception. Players like Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, and Lane Johnson were all drafted in 2013. However, the majority of the draft class lacked depth at almost every position, especially when you compare it to the next year's draft class. In 2014, 17 Pro Bowlers were selected in the first round alone, and it's considered one of the best wide receiver draft classes of all time, with many of the best receivers being selected after the first round. These players could be considered value picks as the amount of money and contracts falls significantly after the second round. Then we have the 2015 draft class, which once again ranks as one of the most disappointing in the last 10 years. While notable players like Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Danielle Hunter, and Tyler Lockett are still producing numbers for their respective teams, only one of them was selected in the first round. Other notable players like Todd Gurley were selected, and while he's not exactly a bust, his numbers significantly dropped off after his first few seasons. This variance in draft class from year to year makes it exceptionally hard for both scouts and GMs to know exactly what they're going to get when it comes to draft time. Which brings us to the final element that causes problems with the NFL draft: the urgency to win now. The average tenure for an NFL coach is roughly 3 years, and the time seems to be getting shorter and shorter. One thing is clear: owners want their teams to win right now. The NFL operates on the idea of produce right away or it's time to move on. When it comes time to draft, coaches are looking for players to fill the roles and help the team they currently have to produce wins. They do not always look for the best player that is currently available. To me, it seems simple for GMs of struggling teams. Draft a QB and extend your job. While there are always exceptions to this case, this seems to be a theme among most teams. It's easier for coaches and GMs to extend their jobs when they can say they have the future of the franchise on the team. Some teams have gone around the first round of the draft almost entirely and chosen to trade these picks for established players to help their team. The 2021 Rams were able to win the Super Bowl using this strategy. For the first time in 7 years, they'll have a first-round draft pick in the 2024 draft. Well, this is not a solution to fixing the NFL draft. It makes one thing very clear when it comes to draft time. At the end of the day, you can never be sure what you're gonna get. Do you think there's any way to solve these issues with the NFL draft? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments section.